What is good, everybody? We are live. Welcome to a new episode, the 31st episode of the Worldwide Company of Gamers podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Shout out to everybody in the chat. The chat is lit tonight. Shout out to Zubitech, my boy, Toolman, Newtonian, Shaky Shako, or Shaki Shako rather. Sorry, brother. I always butcher that. Toolman, you're all awesome. Dawn, Ice Queen, what's good? Donnell Brown, my dude. Guys, we have a phenomenal show for you tonight. It's going to be fire. We have the John Draisey on the show tonight, an esteemed lead director of a upcoming video game, Motorcubs, which looks incredible. We'll be finding more all about that. But also has more things coming in the pipeline with a clear vision, and it's that vision that kind of is explained by the title of tonight's show: nostalgia focused gaming. Why do we need it? Why should we bring it back? And it's just going to be awesome. So really excited about this, guys. I hope the audio sounds good. Let me know how it all sounds to you in the chat. And spam them emojis, and let's get on this. So, firstly, would like to introduce you all to the man himself, Mr. John Draisey. How are you, brother?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Very, very, very well. Stoked that you're here. And as is everybody else, clearly by the looks of things, the chat is pretty lit. For those who want to see John Draisey's beautiful face, he's here on camera. Actually, we're not really one for showing ourselves, but here is the good John. You've seen my ugly mug on Twitter anyway. You all know what I look like.
1,000 subscribers, we all show our faces.
Sounds good.
And smash the subscribe button right now.
Awesome. Facts. Hit that subscribe button. But yeah, so this is John Draisey.
And subscribe to Patreon.
How have you been, John? You doing well?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Everything's going great, so I can't be happier, man.
Cool. I like that background. Is that Motorcubs background that you've got going on?
Yeah, that's level 6.
That's slick, bro.
Just get out of the way.
Oh, damn. I'm excited. Really loving the look of that. It screams another game, bringing another game to my mind. But we'll get on that in a minute. What have you been playing recently? Have you had much time to game?
A little bit. I started playing Ratchet and Clank, A Rift Apart, the PS5 entry. I started playing Hydra Thunder again. I got that via the Xbox store, the backwards compatibility. That thing really holds up after all these years.
Yeah.
And,
sorry,
it was kind of nice.
Which game is that again? Repeat that. Which game?
Oh, Hydro Thunder. It was like an arcade game where you're in these high-speed, like super-powered boats, like Miami, like high-speed boats, and you're racing in like the Grand Canyon or Venice or Miami, and all these locales. It's really neat.
I love it. That's awesome, man. Well, welcome to the show. We're stoked to have you. Hopefully, DZ will be here as well soon. I'm not sure if he can make tonight, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on. OT, how have you been, bud?
Hey, I've been good. Just been practicing new techniques for work and a lot of GT7. And yeah, that's basically been my week. Work and GT7.
GT7 is life. I can't really say that right now. The last week I've been kind of on hiatus with GT7. I've just been distracting myself with, you'd be ashamed of me if I told you, flipping Grand Theft Auto Online. I've gotten back into it. Oh man.
Guilty pleasure.
It is a guilty pleasure, John. 100%. I just think it's so understated how much they are doing and updating that game. I think it's incredible. I mean, even the guy in the bunker has COVID. It's ridiculous. It's Yeah,
Man,
it's
Oli, you're cheating on
madness.
the group, man.
I know,
You
I
need to
know.
come back to
Dirty,
GT.
dirty stop out. I'll sort it out. I'll get my act together. I'll be back whooping your ass on GT7 very soon. Don't you worry. As for retro, how have you been, brother?
I'm very well, bro. Just finishing up a bit of painting today between rounds of GT. So, yeah, it's been a good day. Nice and relaxed.
Awesome. And last but by no means least, Wilhelmovsky. How have you been?
I've been doing fabulous. Shout out to Toolman. He's been greeting me in the chat, and well, what's been new with me? Well, my mother brought me a box of Xbox socks.
Xbox socks.
That's Xbox sucks. I mean, I don't really own an Xbox, but well, I mean, she meant well. She thought to herself, those kids, they love the Sony Xbox. So why don't they give them the Xbox socks?
I love it.
But they're comfortable, okay? So thanks, Mom.
She'll be knitting you a Xbox jumper soon for winter.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, brother. Oh, that's lovely. I love that, man. I would call them X socks. It's X socks, isn't it?
Please, no.
So let's get on with the show. John, you have come tonight to share a spotlight on this upcoming title and also your creative vision. First of all, we really want to know more about you, so people know who you are. We've done our research, but we're not expecting everybody in the chat to know you. So would love to just get to know a bit more about you. So what got you into game development to start with?
So how do I start this? Okay, I've been doing drawing a lot in like high school. That's what I was known for, was just drawing like action scenes and robots. Like I was just a big fan of video games, so I would kind of like whatever I'd seen in Final Fantasy or Spyro the Dragon or Jack and Daxter, like I would kind of draw those scenes. And then my buddy in band, because I was in marching band, he gave me a disc and he said, "Hey, you should check out Lightwave. It's this 3D program." He had the cracked version, and so I just installed it. And he told me like, "Oh, it'd be cool if you could make like some like robot in there." Took me a month, just a month of like getting addicted to it, and building models here and there. And I just sort of messed around with 3D for another 5 years. Like in college, I did college stuff, did my classes. Sometimes I would do 3D a little bit, just for fun. And it got to the point where, I'd moved out. I'm on my own. I'm doing a bank job, just being a teller. And someone asked me to draw something on the board, like, "Oh, could you make like a winter scene?" And I didn't have any like aspirations yet. I was just having fun. And they said, "This is a really good snow scene. Like, look at all this detail and stuff. You should like try and work at Disney." And I thought about it, and I'm like, "Huh, that's like the third time someone has said that." So I went online and I checked out salaries, and I was like, "Holy crap, I can make that much? Well, Jesus, I'm gonna stop playing Call of Duty and start making it." So I started actually taking it seriously and seeing like, well, how good am I? Because I thought I was like the shit. And then, I got no job offers. I got nothing, not even freelance. And so I asked, because there was some podcast I'd listened to, some kind of YouTube guy, and he said, "Oh, you don't know how good you are until you ask for honest feedback, not from your friends." Those guys online said, "Your portfolio is shit. You should throw it away. It's bad." And I was like, "Oh." So I threw it all away. And I started like purchasing courses. I went to Noman for a little bit, like just some small classes, and found out like, what am I doing wrong? Because I've been doing freelance, teaching myself, but I've never had an actual teacher. And so I sought out people like Alan McKay. Alan McKay is a really good podcaster. He's been in the film VFX industry since he was 16. So he gave me a lot of advice vicariously through the podcast. And then he had meetups. And that was cool because he said, "Hey, if you listen to me, I'm going to be in Santa Monica at this like hotel lobby for the night if you want to drop down." So I came down, and he was asking everyone for their phones, for their portfolios. I showed him mine, and he said, "You should actually do is architecture. I think you'd be pretty good for architecture. This guy's just brilliant, because as soon as I applied to architecture, I had a job in 3 months.
Bloody hell. That's incredible.
Oh,
You know what?
That's crazy.
I find it inspiring how, you know, you just decided to one day put your mind to it, and it wasn't a particularly long period of time before you got somewhere and was making great progress. You put a lot of effort in, but the rewards came relatively quick. And
Oh, I do want to emphasize, it took me 6 years to get from maybe I should take this seriously to, signing my life away with my current job and becoming a part of that team. 6 years.
well, it's a credit to you, brother.
A lot of time.
And you still look early 20s. What can I say? Flipping amazing. No, but honestly,
Moisturized.
Yeah, brother. I'm covered in wrinkles, but and I'm only 29. Flipping out, shocking. So with that being said, I think people want to just know about, firstly, most importantly, this game, Motorcubs. A lot of people have been checking it out. Shout out to people in the chat. We had right at the start of the show, Newton. Was it Newton? Was it? It was Jesus Penner. Jesus Penner in the chat. He said that he just checked the game out, and the demo footage looks incredible. We've got some footage to share with you guys as well on the show, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be brilliant. But yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing. But how would you summarize this game? And if you could tell us a bit about it, that would be awesome.
Sure. So this game was kind of the result of years of just testing out Unity here and there. And it was around July 2021. That's when I really I was going through the store, PlayStation store, Xbox store, trying to find something racing related from the old days. And I realized oh yeah, I used to play MotorStorm a lot, and I couldn't find anything similar. I couldn't find Monument Valley. That was number one. Number two, I couldn't find brutal off-road racing. There's dirt, but I felt dirt was too safe in terms of how it treated me. There wasn't a lot of risk. You just kind of bounced off things, and it was kind of low key. So I went to a local game store. I picked up a PlayStation 3. They had a copy of MotorStorm. I fired it up, and it was just as good as I remembered. And I kind of spent a week wondering why is it so good? Why did I want to go back? And I realized, oh yeah, it is slow because there's weight, and everything kind of matters. Everything is dangerous. You can lose a race instantly because you took just one wrong bump in the road. And I was I want to bring that back. So I asked some of my friends, would you be interested in doing this again? Because most of them were gamers, and the unanimous answer was hell yeah. And so right then and there, I was okay, we're going to make this. I looked up names that I could do that were trademark available, and thought about well, what's the worst case scenario? This is something I've learned over the years, is just plan for the worst. And the worst case scenario for me is Sony one day says, you know what, we're going to remake MotorStorm, and then we would just be like them. And so, as much as I love that franchise, I would hate to I'd say in a way step on their toes, but also be a mirror image of a remake. So I thought, okay, how do we push it a little further? How do we plan for the future? So I thought about, old Disney movies. What I liked was the anthropomorphic animals. I thought, how cool would it be if the world was actually run by bears? Yeah, who had evolved to where we got. They have vehicles. How would they design racetracks? How would they design their advertisements? Because games you'll be playing was it Counter-Strike, and there's a Subway ad, and that kind of takes you out of the moment, but it does make sense from a human perspective. So I was well, let's not have Subway ads. What kind of sandwich shop would Bears come up with? Would they advertise car brands that they had come up with on track too, kind of like Formula One?
Yeah.
So we've just been thinking of ways that they would approach vehicles, track, just the whole shebang. So it is a bear-themed Savage off-road racing game.
I love it. I love it. By the way, all the panel, feel free to chime in whenever you want to chip in. Absolutely, you don't need to.
John, you know when we were speaking. Sorry, Ori. You know when we were speaking earlier, and I asked about platform availability. Are you allowed to say that? Are you allowed to let it be known that it's coming to the PlayStation and stuff? Yeah, that's okay.
My company, I can say what I want.
You answered the question before he even could answer
I know,
himself.
but it was his reaction. I can see him on video.
You could have sold him out.
No. I could see him. It's okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm just excited. I'm just really excited. Can't wait. It looks really fun. It's kind of like you said, old school kind of arcade racing with a new twist, if you will. So
a little bit.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, just wait till you see the test footage. And the footage is actually of me kind of like figuring out what's going on with the level. Can I find any weak spots? So there's times where I pause and stuff, but you'll understand why. Just knowing that.
Okay. Cool.
Let's see.
Yeah, I did show just some of the Kickstarter footage. This is the Kickstarter footage that I'm playing right now, guys, and this was the Kickstarter video that John ever so eloquently pitched to people to get this game in full swing. And even from the initial pitch video, the footage looks amazing. But this level 6 gameplay that we've got in store for you is even better. It's a step up, and it just shows that progress really is happening with this game. But if you do want to support Motorcubs, if by the end of this show, Motorcubs really has inspired you as it has me, I've already decided to support this game on Kickstarter, and you can too. And by purchasing the game. But before speaking of the end of the show, we're not there yet. Don't worry. Sorry, John, to break it to you. We're not at the end of the show just yet. But OT actually made a little bit of a tribute video in a way, a special video specifically for you, John, as an intro to the show. And like an absolute wally, I forgot to play it, so we'll save that for the end of the show as the outro video, which will be...
It'll be a really good outro.
Cool. But I do apologise, OT, for butchering the intro, brother. My apologies, man. You had a question before we continue, OT. You had a question, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask how big the team is, and secondly, what do you use to model the terrain and rocks?
Oh, okay. So it's 5 of us. So it's me. I direct it, but I also go into Unity and implement scripts, make changes, get the assets in there up and running. And then we have a environment artist who's also a tech artist. I'll get into that in a bit. We have a musician who is basically, he's in a band, but he's kind of like Mike Shinoda. He can do every single instrument. So he gets these rock songs together. He's insanely good. We have a vehicle artist, and she strictly does vehicles. Like, she'll take kind of like Luke's design and reference, and she'll explore where the vehicle can go in terms of design, and delivers those. And then we have a contract programmer who will implement features as we need and sort of explore the scripts that we're proposing.
Oh, guys,
architectural visualization.
I just had the mic muted by mistake. Sorry, I'm still a rookie at this. Guys, I was just saying, John and OT share something very similar. They share something in common. Before John became a full-time developer, what was it that you worked in, John? You were... So
I still work in architecture. That's my day job.
Right. And architectural, I can't remember the pronunciation. How you say it?
Visualization.
Visualization. And it's for subcontracting specifically. So the architect will design the building. The company I work for, they'll take the design, they'll do the nuts and bolts, figure out how the exterior should be fabricated, assembled, and installed. And so I'll animate that process on site of construction workers installing the units, making the building level by level. That's my thing.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
OT, isn't that
So
similar
you're
to
rendering. Yes, but the way I do it, because my brother does the animations, so I
Mhm.
do mostly the setting up of the scene from DWG to 3D Max and then V-Ray.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I can't. I'm not good at animating, but I'm just good at just modeling the buildings, terrain, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
your portfolio
DDW.
showed that your breadth of skills is crazy, from scripting more or less to sculpting Houdini to lighting, animation. I was just wondering how many years has it taken you to master all these skills?
6 years. Actually, I just finished my 6th year at the company, and
No,
I
no, no.
migrated us
Not
from
your
Maya.
skills. Oh, when you're saying, when did you start practicing? Not employment. I'm
Oh,
saying practicing.
practicing
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's been a
amazing?
while.
I guess OT. I know you kind of have goals and dreams in the gaming industry and stuff, and it must be pretty
Yeah.
encouraging to see like John started
Yeah,
at
you
Yeah,
can do it
from
too.
similar routes. That's
yeah. Especially because he's come through the archivist section.
Mhm.
And it just feels like it's just interesting to see
Oh,
the journey of how someone crosses from one field. I think you started from psychology.
yeah, I was a psych major. So not a lot of people know this. I actually got accepted to art college. Specifically, it was a video game design college. I did the whole interview
Wow.
process, and they said for sure, like, please join us, please. And I thought that was really cool because they liked my portfolio. They knew that they could teach me a lot of good principles because I had a decent foundation. I showed some skill, but unfortunately, my
Hmm.
mom, she didn't really see that as a good financial future. So she pushed me like, just figure out what you want to do at a regular college. So that's what I did.
that's awesome. OT with specializes in architectural visualization as well, or something along those lines. He designs these
Mhm.
awesome concepts of buildings, and I was just like,
Yeah.
it's really cool to see almost like you've done what he's doing and with his goals
What?
and stuff. It's cool. It's cool
Oh,
to
you
see.
cut out.
Sorry, am I botting?
Yeah.
Am I botting? Can you hear me?
No. It
All right.
sounded okay to me.
Okay. Cool. Sorry. So
And
John, just going back to the game for a minute. Was there a particular feeling you were trying to capture with Motorcubs? Because
I don't hear you.
John, do you not hear me?
Wait,
Do you not
do I
hear
not
me?
hear anyone? Is
Hello?
everyone muted?
Right. Sorry. Okay. Let me fix this. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I hear you.
Sorry, John. I don't know what's going on here. The Discord is botting out. Is everything all right? You can still hear me?
Yeah,
Okay. Apologies, mate.
no problem.
Sorry for this, guys. Technical issues. John, was there a particular feeling you were trying to capture with Motorcubs? You touched on Motorstorm, and for me, it immediately. I think what also helped was the music at the start of your Kickstarter trailer was the same music as Motorstorm, but the game, it just oozed that nostalgia for me. I don't know if that was the case with you. Like you
Yeah.
did touch on it.
And it took a long time to really capture it. Like, I know when we showed the Kickstarter, we were sort of on our way, but I wasn't 100% happy with how it looked, and not necessarily from like a graphics fidelity, but I just wasn't getting the feeling of scale necessarily. So this actually touches on what Odie was saying about the rocks. So the rocks are actually Houdini simulations. I've been working in Houdini for a few years, and this
Hmm.
actually touches on work too. There's only two of us at work, and we're handed off like animation tasks. And so I realized, like, well, I was not sleeping. I wasn't getting much sleep because I was constantly doing things by hand, manually setting up scenes.
Yeah.
And so over the course of years of like learning Houdini, now I have a tool that we developed over the course of 10 months We started this tool in
Wow.
August 2021, and we just finished it like 2 months ago, where we can throw in any shape that we've modeled, and then we run the simulation for like 10 minutes, and it comes out looking like
What?
this. Yeah.
That's incredible. So
Man, that's
you've
insane.
literally created a proprietary, like an algorithm, like a
Yep.
like a
That's insane. That reminds me of Gaia, the terrain modeling
Yep.
software.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've been using Gaia for the last 1 week, and I was thinking that the limitation is, what if you wanted a unique kind of mountain? So game developers obviously would have to design it, model it first, and then running a simulation makes sense to make it easier, because Gaia is a bit limited in terms of what you can actually model.
Yeah, because Gaia is a 2D high field program. You're just using a
Yeah.
black to white grayscale. So the problem with that is you can do every angle except the crevices, like underneath, kind of like how you see on the
Yeah.
rock next to me. Like you can't get those divots in Gaia. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
it's hard. So
Yeah.
that was our problem. We're like, how do we do this? This is like the holy grail. If we can figure this out, we're like a step ahead, and we don't have to hire 5 more artists to like model everything. We can do it in house. And
Because I noticed them immediately that the rocks look substantially better.
yep, and I think this was like, this is something that at least the MotorStorm guys would have loved to have. And I do
Wow.
appreciate one thing, which is it feels like they hand modeled every single level, like every rock, every cliff, and you can feel it. So
Yes.
even though we're using pre-made parts, it's parts that we made that we can customize. And level 6 is a great example, because there are some like reused pieces over and over, but there's actually custom pieces also based off of what the level designer felt like. So the guy who made this with me, he's also
Yeah.
doing the levels, and so he has access to the same tools. He understands it because we made it together. And so he was like,
Wow.
there's like this one section that I think it's not working with like the current kit that we have. And I was like, yeah, like let's just do a custom piece and just don't worry about the polygons. Just do what you got to do to fill it in. And he's been going wild. Like he knows like there's a budget in terms of RAM, how many pieces we can have and things like that. But I told him, it's just a rule. You can bend it. I won't say anything. Yeah, it's a small club. Yeah, that is a small club right now. I know Ubisoft, they've been using Houdini to create landscapes. Horizon, Forbidden West, and the prequel before that by Guerrilla. Guerrilla's been using Houdini very extensively and in a very smart way. So I actually watched their tutorials from like SIGGRAPH and GDC to get a feel of, where can we go with this? Like, what are the possibilities? And because we're small and RC scaled, my approach was, we got to do the rocks really well. We have to see the fracture points. We have to see the erosion, because when you're that small, it's got to hold up.
Yeah.
This also brings me to my question. What you've mentioned before is that you were pretty much inspired by MotorStorm while doing this game, and this is something that I've also been noticing in the indie scene that has been going on for quite a few years now. Is that we all know that the game industry changed a lot during the current years. It's not like games haven't been like they've used to decades ago. The shooters now are quite different from the shooters back then. And of course, I do enjoy me some COD, but people know me, I am a big Quake, Doom, and Duke Nukem guy, and so are also many others. So, you know the kind of people that say, they don't make them like they used to. So the indie scene, basically, they do it like they used to. And you see that, like, there's a whole retro shooter revival going on right now with companies like, studios like New Blood, for example, publishing games like Gloomwood, for example, which is a spiritual successor to the classic Thief games, and also Dusk, which is a game inspired by the likes of retro shooters like Blood and Quake. So this is also what I've been like. This is also
John's
kind of
looking like flipping at this lad knows his games.
Yeah,
this is also what I'm seeing also right now. you kind of doing? You know, you love MotorStorm, so you try to make like one MotorStorm yourself, and so I wanted to know like what's your whole take on it? What is your take on the indie scene evolving like it does right now, with people basically trying to recapture the old magic that seemed to faded away many decades ago?
Yeah, like I think it goes back to nostalgia and like rose-colored glasses. You're like, man, this is like the greatest thing ever. A lot of times we go back and we're like, maybe it's not as good. But I think that memory is really, really important. Like, okay, so back to my like psych days, right? If you make a song, right, and you write it down, you play it over and over. As you play it, it gets a little more refined. You kind of forget the bad things, you keep the good things. And so seeing a lot of indie developers relying on that memory and just sticking to what's like what made it tick for them, what keeps them interested, I think is really important. We're kind of in like this crazy wave of like indie revivals, spiritual successors, and
Yeah.
I can't believe that it's happening. But yeah, it feels like this is like the beginning of a new like renaissance for gaming, where anybody can just get an
Absolutely.
engine, anyone can go online and find a team and see if it happens, see if it works. Like what's the worst that can happen? You got experience. What's the best that could happen? You made your dream come true. It's really, really cool.
Totally with you there, man. Totally with you there.
Yeah,
it's definitely.
Like, it's also something that I think it's also like what you're doing there is what I think really awesome and really beautiful. I really just have endless admiration when it comes to that sort of stuff. And basically, when I heard you trying to recreate like those like that PS2 game, it's like those PS2 racers. I have a huge soft spot for them, due to like, for one, I love the arcadey feel, and secondly, I love the early 2000s nu metal soundtrack. And with you trying to like to do it yourself, basically just recapturing just that old feeling again, and it basically introduced that feeling to a new audience, to a new generation. Is just pretty beautiful.
Yeah, there were like a couple of things that were very important to me. One was split screen multiplayer. It's been a long time since I played a game like that. So yeah, we have split screen local multiplayer. We don't have online because that's going to take us a couple of years and some like server engineers to get a hold of and figure it out. But so the side is like why it's RC, why I started small. Originally I was going to do full scale, but I didn't have experience. I don't know what I was getting myself into really. So I figured, if I keep it small, kind of like bet small, lose small. If I keep it small and it's just a few vehicle classes, not 8, just 4. And it's not like a bunch of different like level designs. It's technically just 12. Even the team is small because I want to have a full responsibility. Whoever's doing vehicles, that is their jam. Whoever's doing levels, that's theirs. So there's like a really clear line of communication between all of us, and I think that's why we haven't had any hiccups. Like we just hit 50% complete a few days ago. That's pretty cool.
That's
right?
Amazing.
That's amazing. But we've had a very small scope from the beginning. Like, hey, it's just going to be split screen or like one player arcade. That's it. Nothing crazy. We're not going to like mix genres and try and do something like crazy different. Let's just stay focused. What did we like about those previous games that we were talking about? And it really is just, let's go off road. Let's have creative designs because it's the tracks that people really love. And then beyond the tracks, make sure that there's like a level of creativity for the vehicles, that they make sense, that they're fun to drive. And that's it. Like, give people a physics playground with good background music. And we're set.
All the right notes for me. John, David Faulkner in the chat. He's a panel member, but he's not well at the moment. But yeah, hope you get well soon, David, brother. He's asking, is it 4-player split screen?
It is 2-player.
2-player. David has kids that he often plays the Switch with, so I know that couch co-op and split screen will mean a lot to him for sure. But that's awesome. By the way, just a small thing just to mention. Apologies, guys. about my mic cutting out earlier on. I've since fixed it, and it won't be cutting out again, I promise.
Nice.
There's a moment when before, John, where I asked you. You mentioned you were in a small club, and it's because you've pioneered a technical innovation. If you could just, for me, because I'm a bit of a dummy when it comes to this sort of stuff, but that's what this show is for. It's for people like myself as well as listeners to learn who from those who are more in the know-how. How would you explain that innovation in kind of textbooks for dumb, like in layman's terms?
Sure. Okay. So normally you want to make a sculpture like the Statue of David, and you get your chisel, your hammer, and you start chipping away at that for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, couple of months until you get that perfect form. There was a problem. Studio director comes by and is like, well, it's clipping the cars whenever they drive by on the rear side. Can you change it? Well, then you gotta, add on to it. You have to make the changes manually. Now, that's actually pretty fast, right? You're like, oh, it's just a couple months to make this sculpture. If you can have a tool that created a David in 10 minutes and could create a different David every 10 minutes, depending on parameters you set, like smoothness, erosion, how many erosion breaks in terms of like height, things like that. Well, you can iterate a lot faster. You can find the fun faster, and you don't have to hire as many people. So it's a good cost-saving measure.
It's incredible. Wow, flipping out. Pennies dropped. Pennies dropped.
So that's kind of our studio motto. Like the main motto is focused nostalgia games, where we look back at what we liked playing and why, and kind of recapture that feel. Like we're not stopping with this game. We have a couple of games planned that I think is going to drop some jaws, and people are going to be clamoring for it because there's IPs that are just sitting there untouched.
I miss Warhawk, brother. I miss Warhawk.
Me too.
I miss SOCOM. I miss those kind of games. I know Buck Roger in the chat. But a shout out to Buck Roger in the chat. He is a huge what's the word? Kind of advocate for pre-internet dependent gaming. He's not subscribed to
actor for me.
Yeah, subscription models, all that rubbish. He wants rid of any of that, and it's physical before DRM, and it just sounds like you're a studio that not only deserves all the success in the world, but like freaking hell, if I was Herman Hulst, if you're listening, invest in this studio, man. Flipping out, Wilhelm.
But I am listening.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So, do you guys ever read like the Jason Schreier books, like Press Reset or Blood, Sweat, and Pixels?
I've read a few. I gotta be honest. It's been a while since. This show we keep things neutral, but I respect Schreier for what he does. I really do, but I do think he sensationalizes things for clicks. But go figure. That's what journalism is for nowadays. And I've kind of distanced myself from a lot of his material. But that being said, he still does give in the muddied water. There is only information that only he would provide. That is accurate.
And
he's got
his
sources.
His books are not sensationalist. Luckily, they're very much like just interviews with people. Lessons from, like, say, the making of Destiny or the making of Uncharted 4. So I read those books a few times, and something that really stood out to me is like, well, you have to have a good company culture, and not like, everything's fun and rainbows and we're all amazing and happy all the time. Like, that's not human. But setting the tone of like, do you trust each other? Are you guys all on the same page, making the same game? Like, that's important. I've seen a lot of situations where that is not the case. And sometimes, right, there's like studios that it's not a group of people who came together from passion. They're actually like put together from a corporate level. Like, hey, we need to have a studio making Halo. So let's make a studio. Like, so that's why I wanted to start small, just to make sure that it's people who enjoy the same games as me and like to work the same way I do, which is kind of like a not a slow pace, but more of a relaxed pace,
Someone who
taking your time.
shares your vision. How did you
Yeah,
go about
because like,
finding that talent, to share your
oh
vision
man,
with?
I've just been becoming friends with people over the internet for years. And
Incredible.
like Evan, I've known him for 5 years. He's always talked about making an RPG similar to like Front Mission or like Final Fantasy VII. Like that's actually one of the games we have planned. Is it's sort of a blend of Final Fantasy VII and Front Mission. So go figure. Like he just loved nostalgic games. He loved the old school way of doing things before we had DLC skins, before we had subscriptions, where it was you had the game and there was no patch, and it was fun. You could share it. It had a focus on like just being a pure game. And I had the same feeling. Yeah, just tapping into the people I knew and proposing this project. It was just as simple as that.
It's amazing. What is it that how you separate roles? What's your
Mhm.
friend called again? His name is
The music guy?
yeah, the
Or
guy that you mentioned just then that you teamed up with to develop this. Edward, was it his name?
oh yeah, so Evan, he
Evan.
does the music, yeah, and Carlos handles the tech art and environments.
I love it. How did you like? What? Well, first of all, what is it that you specialize in, particularly, John?
Everything.
Ah, I love it.
Yeah, everything. Because you see my whole journey through life, right? Like I can do music. Like I have an old CD from like my college days called Shameless Plug Time. All right. It's called Techno Viking Says This Battle Needs More Bass. And so I did music. Like I know film because I studied film, video games because I studied that and played all the time.
Jack of all
So I
trades.
figure like my role really is just playtesting a lot. Like I'm a glorified QA man and letting people know, where things can improve. Not so much like where something sucks, because like what sucks. Like you really have to say why you have that feeling. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, there's kind of like a lull in like level 6 between like these two sections. Is there something you can do to make it like a little more engaging? Like I'll explain that, and I can go in and I can like model things. Like there's certain props I've modeled. I can go in and like help with the modeling of a car. So at any point, I can jump in and adjust things, record myself doing it, and send the video because we're all remote. That way, it's not just me saying, I like it my way. I like to explain the why so that they can predict what I like in the future. So it's all about just communication, making sure that no one is mind reading me. Um, that's it. It's just make sure there's a clear line of communication. I think that's why I like having people who are sort of doing the whole process, like Sarah. She's modeling the vehicles and she's doing the materials from beginning to end.
Wow.
And so I have
Yeah.
one person to talk to for every vehicle. And I've talked to some like other developers on Twitter. There's some disagreement. Like I've been told by actual like real developers who work on like big games, like, no, that's not realistic. You can't hire people to do the whole process from beginning to end. And I've rebutted with, well, what about Crash Bandicoot? Like they had people who just did everything from beginning to end, the model and the texture. Some of them did even characters together. Like that was a small team of what, 5 people? So I think if you give people who you trust like enough responsibility, they will step up to the plate and they will want to do the whole process because in a way it breaks up your week. You're not just doing the same thing over and over and over. You're kind of refreshing yourself from say the design phase to the modeling to the texturing. I want to in the future find more people who can do the whole process of like, hey, I'm not assigning you the textures of this character in this RPG. I'm giving you the whole character, and you're gonna go through the design phase. You're gonna model them, texture them, rig them, and then you are ultimately responsible for animating them. I think that is slightly crazy. Like there's a lot of risk there, but when people have to do the whole process, they know what to anticipate. Something that I saw in like some of Jason Schrader's articles and other interviews in GDC was like it's kind of a pain when someone hands you their work and there's something off about it, and then you have to email them or talk to them and say like, hey, like these things need to be fixed before I can do my work. So that's a roadblock, and that's lost time. Because people have different styles, different ways of working sometimes. But if it's one person and they don't like their rig, well, they made the rig, so fix it the way that you want so that you can animate it. That I just want to go back, not just the way that games used to be played, but kind of like the way they used to be made, where there wasn't like so much a big focus on huge art departments and smaller programming. It was more of a balance.
The older Need for Speed titles also have let you customize your own rig as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of freedom there, and I think there was, I guess, maybe less like market research, less focus on like what's the end game, what's the season pass. It was more so just
more about the game.
It's more about the game. Yeah,
facts. I think certainly my age bracket and upwards, we can really appreciate. I for one feel like gaming has lost its way a little bit, and I don't want to be all doom and gloom. There is some awesome things kind of coming to the fore, but at the same time, I think priorities have changed, and the whole, I guess you could say, the whole climate is different now, and the focus. So that's kind of going into the next question. If you haven't figured this out yet, guys, I have a list of questions for John, but any questions that the panel have.
We actually came in prepared.
I know, I came in prepared. You won't think it because I was butchering the show and near the start, but you'll have to forgive me. I still get nervous. But if the panel have any questions, or people in the chat, you have specific questions, just by all means holler, and I'll pick out the ones that I can. Or if John sees any that he wants answered, by all means, John, the mic is yours. But speaking of where we are now, we're in the 9th generation. With hardware accelerating so fast, it's ridiculously hard to keep up. I mean, the 40 series is coming out to make everything else before it obsolete. What new potential innovations in game design now possible excites you? We know that the magic of nostalgia is important, and also what made those games special. Those games, like you mentioned before, and I think that's a really important point, John. Those games in the past, they weren't flawless, but they linger in our memories. They mean something to us now, and that's the key. What was it about those games that today means so much to us? And there was obviously something special, and although that's important, that doesn't completely dismiss the incredible innovations that are happening today. And I just wanted to ask you, what excites you so much about the new hardware that we're getting at the moment, and the new innovations in software as well?
I think first thing for me is actually the solid state drives, and not because they're like loading everything faster and you can have bigger, beautiful worlds. It's just you're getting to the game as fast as we used to back on like the Game Boy. That instant jump in, have fun, fire it up, instead of staring at loading screens. I feel like that's kind of like a byproduct too of like there's been this sort of war of we need to look more photorealistic every single time, and it's sort of a symbiotic thing, right, between game developers and then the gaming media, who they reward the better a game looks, the more coverage it gets, so the developers make better looking games, and it's this constant rise, right, of visuals that kind of slow down our load times. That's why we had like 1 minute load times on PlayStation 3 and PS4. So I'm just happy to have SSDs back and just get back to the fun faster. I guess the other thing that I really liked is there's a big focus on strong CPUs. Back on PS3, right, we had games like Killzone 2 where there were physics interactions from every bullet as you fired at the enemies and hit their bodies. And I still haven't seen that since. I'm like, well, we got to get back to that, because that for me was like the future of gaming, was the physics, not like the lighting. The lighting's cool, but the lighting doesn't bring you back. So I'm hoping with like the strong CPUs that we have in Xbox Series and PS5 that we can return to that, especially like once Nintendo upgrades their hardware. we'll see everything rise up, because we're sort of seeing like games pull back a little bit on interactions, so that they can be more cross-platform and have more sales. So that's what I
100%.
like about this right now.
I like what you said there. I agree. World interactivity and cause and effect is so important for me. Like seeing cause and effect from my own hands in a video game is one of the most rewarding experiences that is seldom kind of needed now. Like it's so rare that we get that. Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, Breath of the Wild kind of. It's just so rare, and to see CPUs utilized more would be huge. I think NXG, we had NXG Michael Thompson on not too long ago, and he said games have reached a plateau when it comes to visuals, and there's only so much graphics can do, and I agree. Look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla, right? Perfect example for me, not wanting to dog on the game, but for goodness sake, it's gorgeous in its environments. But the moment the character starts moving and you're trying to interact with the world, everything just falls apart, in my opinion. And there's only so much pretty lighting and nice textures can do, to a game.
Yeah. Doesn't it feel like games are almost designed for just screenshots or trailers now?
Yeah, photo mode.
Yeah.
It's such a good point.
But I wanted to ask, what's the kind of interaction you're gonna have in the game in terms of breakable objects? Like MotorStorm, sometimes there are a few bridges which could break because of the timber columns and struts. So I was just wondering, are you going to have that kind of interaction where it seems like mayhem is going on as you're driving from all the physics and breakable objects?
So we don't have breakable objects in this game. It is planned for a sequel that I'll hint at later. Right now we're just sticking with rigid body physics. So I don't know if you noticed in the footage, like there's individual like pebbles on the ground that will move out of the way or affect your driving. So depending on your vehicle class, whether you're small, medium, large, or Titan, and the weight of that class, you can plow through them or you avoid them like a plague because they do affect your handling. We'll have twigs in the game. The bushes, they kind of move out of the way. We even have like mud zones that we're playing with right now. The holy grail for me for this game is having interactive mud above all else. So that's still being like researched and developed. I hope we can have it in there. But that's it. We're not going to have any platforms break. And the only reason is the AI isn't that smart. Like it can't tell at the moment if a path has disappeared. So you have to have that intelligence before you have like ramps and bridges that fall apart. So it's a future goal. Yeah, so we have to fix the AI even further. Once we advance that, then we can do even more physics. So it's kind of like this cool relationship between AI and physics.
I think
I want to know.
Yes.
Will there be a 2000s nu metal soundtrack pack? That would make the experience fucking complete.
Our composer, he's kind of experimenting with like chill music. Is really whatever he feels like. He just made a Metallica track, like a Metallica style song. I can't play it here. It's really cool though, and so I'll let him know like, hey, can we have a new metal song?
Oh, please do it.
Oh yeah,
That's
he's
a great
game.
idea.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. He can collaborate with me. I play drums.
Oh shit, I love it. I didn't know you played drums, Wilhelm. I was in a band for 2.5 years. We should all do a company of
We should all tribute to this soundtrack.
Big facts. Yeah, we'll be your cheerleaders, John. Absolutely. Loving it, guys. SSD. I have a dream. Basing off, what you said. SSD changes everything. I have a dream of a game where, similar to like Spider-Man, New York City, every building you can enter, and I know that's now possible, and every building would look different because all you need is a pool of assets, high quality assets. No need for duplicates anymore. Maybe 200 or 300 indoor assets, and as you're approaching a building, they get stored temporarily in the RAM. You enter through the door, they load in as you're entering through the door. And what's in all the peripherals in the other rooms get loaded in. And with the SSD of the PS5, for example, being able to load in 16 gigabytes in 2 seconds, it can all be randomized, procedurally generated. Each building you go into with a different layout using the same assets or variations of the same assets, but you don't anymore need to worry about having all them fully loaded in storage. They can just be brought in on the fly. And that makes something like that sounds impossible actually possible now. So I agree, SSD is a huge game changer, and I know very little about it, but from what I have read, it could completely. We're only scratching the surface of what is possible this generation, and I think.
Yeah, and I have some lessons from Spider-Man if you want to hear them.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so on Spider-Man PS4, they had to do what you said, like they make the whole city, and they had to kind of track, well, how fast does Peter Parker move through New York City per second, right? And how you have to compare that to the speed of the hard drive, how many megabytes it can load per second, because that's the limiting factor. And they said, well, what if people use like their own hard drive? What's the slowest hard drive you can buy? They're like, all right, 25 megabytes per second. That's how much content can be in the city. And when they broke it down even further, they're like, okay, so it's going to be a lot simpler than we expected. And now that we're counting for that, how many assets can we actually have, like in terms of props, like light poles, street lamps, newspaper racks, things of that nature? And they had to design around a 25 megabyte a second speed.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so having an SSD that reads 1,000 megabytes a second at its slowest, well, you don't have to do that anymore. In fact, like there's a lot of repeated assets in terms of like, if you think about you're reading a hard drive and you're just traveling through, well, you have to think about the hard drive has to read sequentially block to block, right? It can't really jump around too fast. Otherwise, there's a seek time. There's a delay. You could get a hitch in the gameplay. And so they had a lot of assets repeated on disk just so that it wouldn't have to jump around.
Wow.
Like, so you had the same assets over and over and over, block to block, but it was just, it was all designed around hard drives. And now, like, I can't imagine a Spider-Man on PS5. Like, that's going to be nuts in terms of, like, the amount of objects, the amount of unique objects per block, or unique people. So it's going to feel even more alive. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, flipping heck. The way you've broken it down, again, another penny drop moment. I never thought of it in that way, about in terms of speed per second, amount of megabytes per second. But to know like they've designed Miles Morales for a PS4 game, like around that level, and how far away that is from what is now possible when building natively for current gen hardware. That's nuts. That blows my mind, because that game still looks freaking impressive. And if that's like only kind of limited to that maximum kind of what do you call it? What's the word? Like wall. ceiling. That ceiling.
Yeah, there's a ceiling
of 25 megabytes per second. Well, imagine what's possible when there is no ceiling. Yeah, in all practical terms. It's unbelievable. Flipping it.
Something that would have affected us if we were on, say, like PS4, like older Xbox One hardware, is we have to do more. It's called level of detail, where there's not like just one object. There's actually multiple versions of an object at different levels, like high poly, medium poly, low poly, and that way we can like load the scene faster, because faraway objects are lower detail, and as you get closer, well, like they're higher detail. We don't have to do that. We just have everything at full quality all the time, because because the SSD is so fast. I don't have to think about streaming as much. It's just like, insane. Well, so it speeds up our development time. That's another thing about SSD. It's like, well, if you don't have to do something like that, that's like a day or two safe. Like, that's cool. You can make better content.
Faulkner in the chat, David, he says, how much impact does having faster load times and removing asset duplication do to game sizes for a game like Motorcub RC?
So it's actually made the game bigger because we don't really optimize too much. We've just been putting like full 4K assets in there. We do have like polygon limits, but Unity's really good about compressing assets and only using what's actually in each level. So right now when I bake the game out, it's only like 5 gigabytes.
Wow.
And that's with like, that's barely nothing. That's like, with like 6 vehicles and 6 levels, that's pretty good. That's tracking well.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's really good.
Are you going to be using any of the cracking compression tech or anything like that?
No, we're using stock Unity tech.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't dove into like the actual PS5 development yet, because in the Kickstarter we promised PC, Mac, and Linux for launch. PS5 wasn't a part of that, but then to my surprise, Sony's like, "Hey, yeah, why don't you guys make the game for PS5?" So
you have a dev kit.
We'll see if I can get
a PS5 dev kit.
Yeah, we got a dev kit.
That's amazing. I think honestly, I bet you've got itchy feet, because although you're honoring, your original for, I mean, PC's awesome, Linux and all that, but like being able to dig your teeth into the current hardware, at a later date fully will be pretty exciting for you as a developer.
Yeah, I'm thinking we'll give ourselves about 3 months to like go full steam on the PS5 and see if there's anything that maybe we can take advantage of or beef up. We'll see. I don't know what I don't know, but
four player split screen, make it happen, John.
I'm sorry. It's feature locked. That's it.
No
sequel.
Worries. How does that work? Feature locked? It's like, it's the way the game's designed. It's the core game design.
Yeah. So from the beginning, it was 2-player split screen, which is, you have 2 cameras rendering the whole game, which means you've already lost half your graphics power. So that's already like, all right, that's a big deal. To do 4, we don't even have like 4 people to test the game at once. So right now just 2-player, keep it simple. And here's another thing, like once you like start doing more and more like features and scripts, because they're run through C# scripts on Unity, well, that's CPU time. Those are instructions that are run every single frame, and so as you add features, it slows down a little bit, you lose frame rate. So that's another reason that we're doing feature lock, is I want to make sure that by like the end of September, that is it. The frame rate can be fixed and optimized as needed. Yeah, just polish, because once you keep adding features, there's new bugs. Like we added boost recently, and we thought we were good after like a week, and then we found a bug within it. So that's another programming request that has to go in to fix that very specific bug.
Yeah. Is there that's fair enough. Maybe Motorcubs 2 when it comes out. This
for sure.
Motorcubs, it seems like to me a love letter to like 7th gen stands. MotorStorm, all that good stuff. Is there an era that you would actually go back to if given the chance? Like if you could rewind time?
PS3, absolutely PS3, where you only had 60 gigabytes on your hard drive, so no developer wanted to put out patches that were bigger than say 100 megabytes, maybe 200 megabytes. It was all just, everything had to be finished for the game on the disc, and the disc that you bought is pretty much what everyone else is playing. You don't have to download these huge like 90 gigabyte patches on day one. It was just, you got in the game pretty quickly. The visuals were kind of expressive of cinematic, like Sony was pushing like more cinematic games because they had so much more RAM than before. Like even MotorStorm, like those huge vistas that were like true 3D geometry, they were not photorealistic. They don't have to be. It was all about like the feeling, seeing all that difference in like lighting and scale. That I think that's important more than anything. And I like that it wasn't too powerful either. Like if I could make my own like game console, for instance, I wouldn't make it too powerful. I wouldn't give it like a big hard drive. I think limits are good in the sense that it focuses you.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. You know, that being the case. We had Rip Out. I don't know if you've heard of Rip Out, the game. It's a first-person shooter coming out very soon. Kind of like a looter horror shooter.
There it is. Yeah.
And it's looking pretty dope. I've played the demo. I really enjoyed it. We had one of the developers on not too long ago, and
Yeah.
you know he mentioned that with the superior hardware, all he can see is all the additional work involved to take advantage of it, because more complicated assets means a lot more time and resources put into those assets.
And more risk, more financial risk.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like something's eventually gonna give, I imagine. But what I just wanted to actually get your thoughts on that. You know, what are the challenges of developing on superior hardware, and does for you the greater power require a greater workload and added cons, not benefits?
Yeah, so it's easy to go down a rabbit hole of making things more detailed and fine-tuning them and really thinking about like the marketing, right? If you don't play the game, you can't lose, right? So as long as you're not trying to look like the Dead Space remake to a T, well, you're not going to spend that kind of money. I think that's another reason for like kind of going retro a little bit is, yeah, you might not get as much attention from gaming media if you make it look like it was made from an older console, right? But I think at a certain point you have to, like, when you start a game, you have to know what's your budget, how many assets can you make per day, and based off that, that's your detail level, and just stick with it. You just have to have like willpower. It's kind of like going to Hometown Buffet, right? And saying, no, I will not get the ice cream this time. I'm just going to focus on the ham and the steak. Yes, you know, it's a little bit of willpower and like having a clear vision and sticking with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why in a way, the Nintendo Switch was quite a blessing in disguise, you know, in terms of it had a lower power, but it made games so much focus. Astral Chain, Breath of the Wild, absolute incredible achievements in terms of gameplay, and that was the focus far more than, yeah, they were pretty, they had gorgeous lighting and stuff like that, but it wasn't down to the texture count. I think Assassin's Creed, we can all agree, has super high textures, but I mean, that's as far as it goes, and I think there's far more to a game feeling, playing, and immersing you than how real it looks. So no, I think that's a really good point that you mentioned, John. The chat is lit tonight, actually. Everybody's kind of really digging what's being said. They're loving the vibes and everything John's saying. I think the thing is, John, you talk with the lingo of a developer, yet you're speaking like a player, like a gamer, and your priorities are our priorities, and I think that's what's so refreshing for us, for me anyway. I don't know about how the panel feels, OT, Will, Retro, so far.
I feel the same.
Yeah,
I'm excited for it, man. We need a good, fun arcade racer. We haven't had one in a hot minute.
Yeah.
Oh man,
everybody's saying hi. So on to the next question, because I appreciate your time is precious, John. I don't want this to sound like an interrogation either, but sorry, I apologize. Forgive me. I'm just, man, I need to give my head a wobble. So the current climate is a lot more complicated when it comes to gaming, like we touched on before. We know that gaming journalism has shifted a lot from the official kind of PlayStation Magazine days. Good times. I miss those days when you used to buy a magazine, read about a game, and that's all it seemed to be about was the games. But now it's all complicated game models, games as a service, free to play, all that stuff, subscription services, like Game Pass and PS Plus tiers.
Yeah.
You know, these have all changed the landscape that as we know it. And I know people like Buck Roger, shout out to him. He's old school. He hates it. Hates it with a passion. So does Wilhelm on the panel. So how do you feel as a developer about all of this?
All right, so let's start with the big one, which is Game Pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have to be really careful because now I have a lot on the line. Not to piss off Phil Spencer.
I was going to say, is it a big one though? Because from recent reports, it sounds like nothing big is coming out for the rest of the year. But go figure, they still have a budget. Capital doesn't equate to budget, and I think people forget that with a company like Microsoft. Oh, they're multi-trillion-dollar company. They've got all the money in the world to burn. No, they don't. They're still in it to make money. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Even Jeff Bezos has a budget when he shops, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, in terms of Game Pass, like, I personally wouldn't be interested in Game Pass, only because from the short term, right, the way that it works, from what I've heard, just from conjecture, is said company will come to us. They'll say, hey, for the next year, we would like to have your game on Game Pass, and we'll give you this amount of money up front to cover whatever you've projected or we've projected, right, that you would make.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, if they offer me like $100,000 up front, that's like, wow, that's really good. I can spread that with the team and everyone's happy. And then you see that like 1 million people downloaded the game. And then you're like, wait, what's 1 million times 40? And so, you know, it can go downhill real fast, as we saw with Oddworld, right?
Yes.
And you'll never know. You'll never know if 1 million people would have bought it or if they just downloaded it because it was free. So because of that unknown, I'd rather just kind of like roll the dice and see how many people are truly interested to pay for the game. And whatever happens, happens, you know?
John, you're gonna have to forgive me for a minute. I'm gonna go on what I call a woolly rant, okay? And it's just a thing, right? Woolly Gamer has a woolly rant. And oh my days, this is like slam the table and shout thank you down the mic. You know, I feel very vindicated right now. Make a product, ship the product, let people have faith in the product, and it speak for itself. And we've got very prominent figureheads in a particular demographic, console orientation, influencing people towards one over the other. And these people are begging and demanding that, say, PlayStation put their games day and date on a subscription service. And it's like, what precedent has been set to make that seem like a good idea, to show that that is good for developers? And people are like, well, as a consumer, it's not about the developers, it's about me as a consumer. I'm like, no, you won't have games to play. You certainly won't have good games or high budget games if they're part of an unsustainable business model. You'll have to forgive me. I'm going on a rant here, and I'm going to shut up. But I'm completely with you. Sales matter because developers, you know, giving people a one upfront payment and then seeing 1 million downloads and them downloads being obfuscated with sales figures, like it just seems all very kind of not. Sorry, I'll let you speak.
Oh, it's just tough, right? Like it muddies the waters. You don't know. Like that's kind of like a mixed communication method. Like when it's $1 being transferred, that communicates, hey, developer X, you guys got the right idea. We love it. And if they get no money, that communicates this was a bad idea. Don't do this again. Simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. I always think, you know, £8 in your pocket is a lot more than £8 contribution towards a pool of thousands of developers all subscribed to a game service. And even if Motorcubs isn't bought day one by somebody, but they're like, hang on, this has had a series of updates, it's looking dope, it's on sale for 25 quid, you know, or 20 quid, I'm going to snatch it up. That's still so much more beneficial for you guys. Imagine if Valheim had just launched on Game Pass day one or a subscription model day one and hadn't launched on Steam. and all those sales kind of wouldn't have happened. That team of developers, it would have been a very different story to the success story we read. So no, that's great to hear. Great to hear your thoughts on that, John. And I'm glad that you feel that. I'm glad that you're speaking your mind. Because if you like to not quite sure whether to beat around the bush or how they feel about it, but you seem quite clear cut.
Yeah, I can't help myself because I play games all the time. So I mean, I'm a consumer first.
Yeah,
that's it.
Facts. You sound like one. Do you see subscription service if it reaches a point of sustainability where cash isn't being burned to sustain it, but enough subscribers are subscribed to sustain it, and to sustain. I don't know how that will be possible because I think subscription services have a relatively very low ceiling, and 50 million subscribers pretty much max for a gaming service is kind of the peak. And it's like you've got to fund developers, compensate them for a lack of sales, compensate those sales, incentivize them to put their game on a platform where it won't sell. There's so many issues and caveats that will burn through money. But even if that did reach a state of sustainability, do you think it would impact game quality? Will there be a budget?
I think it might even affect like the game design, because like if you're trying to design something for a specific payout, like once you start getting numbers back and people are sharing this on like Google Docs, like how much did this game get paid out for its 1-year contract, this game, you can sort of like anticipate like, well, based off the budget of that game and how much the payout was on said like Game Pass or subscription pass, well then this is how much we should actually spend for low risk. Like it has to be good enough to qualify for Game Pass, right? But it doesn't have to be like super high quality. It just has to be enough to get the contract. I can see that becoming a problem if Microsoft isn't like really digging in deep into every game, because not everything is like Call of Duty or whatnot on like Game Pass. There's a lot of indie games. There's sort of like
there's your Jet Wash Simulator and your Peppa Pigs, as well as your outside Outriders and bigger games. Facts.
I don't see it like hurting the game industry. I do see it changing a little bit, where it's like, how like people, they make movies that they want to get on Netflix because that's their target. There's going to be people who want to make games for Game Pass because that's their new target. And so it just creates a new genre of games, essentially, I think. I mean, they'll always put like Halo and other big franchises on there because, so like from a perspective of Microsoft, right? If I run Microsoft and I see Xbox sales are here and PlayStation is here, but I want to get to PlayStation's numbers faster, well, free games is actually the best way to sell hardware, which is like, hey, here's the hardware, here's a bunch of free games, and people want that and they'll buy more hardware. So I think it's really more to push hardware, and from a business perspective, it makes sense from a hardware developer, but we'll see. It's kind of like the Wild West. I don't know if they'll keep all of their games day and date, like say like Halo Infinite, right? That was day one on Game Pass. Will they do it in the future for like the next Halo? Kind of up in the air, because $60-$70 is a lot of money per copy. You want to stop that?
I think Halo, for me, and I don't want to go on a tangent or off topic here too much, but I'll just say for me, Halo was a symptom of a lack of care from Microsoft, because if you look at the development cycle, the 6-year period of hell that Halo Infinite went through, and plus the mere 2-year contractees rather than employees that they hired, that made the bulk of the talent that left in 2019, leaving them with half the manpower and an incomplete engine because he ran out of time making the engine, and he still needed to put out a game. When you break all down the development cycle, all it shows to me is that it wasn't all 343's fault. It was Microsoft's fault. They failed Halo. They failed 343, and they obviously didn't put enough money and investment and time into that game to make it the game it needed to be. And it's a real shame. But on a positive note, Forge looks incredible. I don't know if you've been seeing the gameplay of Forge. There's been some new footage released on Twitter, and it just looks insane. Like, Forge is looking really dope. But yeah,
I'm glad that they have Joseph Staten back. Like, that's a big deal. Like, having someone that experience being in charge of studio, I think that's going to turn things around. When I saw that there was only 2 maps coming out for the foreseeable year, I actually took that as a good sign. That means that they're doing a lot behind the scenes and probably thinking about the process of making the game more than anything. So,
before you answer that awesome question from David, John, just one last topic on this whole subscription services and changes to the industry thing, unless the panel have additional questions. As a consumer, because I feel like you speak just as much as a consumer as you do a developer, has this whole, we see a lot of outrage around the price of games. We've seen a terrible shit ton amount of just narratives and just abuse about The Last of Us remake and its developers hurled because of its price tag, its MSRP, and I just wanted to ask you, do you think this whole is a cheaper, far lower entry window into experiencing games, and these promises that I think 22NE2 has yet to kind of amount to anything for Game Pass with its lack of content, but do you think this has shaped consumer attitudes towards away from the games and more how cheap can I get this? Or how do you think it shaped consumer attitudes at all?
Well, I will say, free can be part of a business model. Like, that is good in some ways. Like going to Costco, they give you small samples, right? Mm-hmm. You can get a small sample of pizza, taco, cheese, things like that. But once you get like the entire pizza for free, it does create an expectation of more free stuff because you have a history of getting big free things. So, I mean, it might be somewhat related. And there's a spider. Hold on, got it. So there might be a little bit of an effect, but yeah, it might have something to do with it. The other thing though that we have to look at is economics, where people used to pay $60-$70 for games, like back in the N64 era. There were some expensive games.
More so for Atari.
I think it's
like 100.
Yeah.
So I think more so it might just be like social media, where people who are more vocal, and those are the only people that we see, are kind of making it feel like that's
What's
the sentiment.
A shame though, John, is that minority of vocal people turn out now to be lead directors of IGN and lead journalists. Like the 10 people regurgitating this narrative are more than just the vocal minority now. It seems to be key figureheads in the gaming industry, or should I say the journalistic and media coverage side of the gaming industry are pushing this. And I think it's created, it's if anything been a catalyst, in my opinion, to even more cement these narratives. And that's worrying for me. The fact that, I would understand if it's a small cult-like group of loudmouths just spewing nonsense, but now it seems to be the expectation of even people who you would think would know better.
Well, okay, so I did some deep diving on economics because I had this question. I saw this like years ago as an article on like IGN, I think actually about like game prices. So the average game should actually be $120 right now if we were to keep up with inflation from the 90s. Now think about that for a second. Why is the Call of Duty Season Pass taking you up to $120? They're not dumb. They've done the math.
So repeat that last question. I was
repeating. Call of Duty, right? You pay $60 for Call of Duty. Everything's great. All the maps and characters and stuff. Sorry, you got to get the Battle Pass, and that's going to be $10 every 2 months for the full season. What do you know? at the end of a Call of Duty season of multiplayer, you have spent $120, which, when you look at inflation, is what games should be, what AAA games should be charged at. So they figured out if they just charge half now and half later, they'll keep up with costs.
Buying it on finance.
Yeah, and that explains why we have so many games as services, like God of War. That should actually be like $120 game if you think about it. And you're getting a really good price technically.
You are a clever man, John Draisey. You are a clever man. David Faulkner, he's a business financial analyst. He's got an incredible mind when it comes to all the ins and outs of how all these big major corporations in the industry are managing right now and forecasting the potential future. So I imagine you and him will have some very good talks. I would encourage you, John, to reach out to David Faulkner on Twitter. You can find him at Faulky87. He's sure. Brilliant. But yeah, he has a question for you. John, what are your thoughts on subscription services as legacy backwards compatibility option?
Okay, so I think that's actually where it really shines. Like, if you bought a console and they said, well, here's the Game Pass of our old library, that's really cool. Like, that's a nice way of preserving the past and letting people explore for free franchises that never would have tried and be like, I did like Splinter Cell. Maybe I'll buy the new Splinter Cell. So I think that's where like the real value is, like value added, if they could do that. If you could just have all the old school games backwards compatible and part of that service.
Yeah, 100%. The biggest letdown for me about PlayStation is that they dropped the ball with backwards compatibility. The fact that PS5 can't run natively PS3 games, I understand why with the cell processor, but it is my hope that they figure out a way to do more than just cloud streaming to get those games.
The way the PS3.
Yeah.
The original PS3 wasn't for BC.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Huh?
Sorry, say that again, Retro. The original PS3.
I was saying the original PS3, that was awesome for BC, for backwards compatibility. It had everything, 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, yeah. It had the actual PlayStation 1 on there and the actual PlayStation 2.
PS3 was the dog's bollocks, man. It was the dog's bollocks. It was flipping incredible. I agree, with you and David. I think as well as backwards compatibility, double dipping, using subscription services to double dip to profit more, but to also branch it out to those who may not have bought the game yet is brilliant. Yeah. 100% advocate of that. It is a very different story, however, with the day and date model. Facts.
And thinking about PS3, have you guys noticed that the only PS3 games that are available through that online subscription are the ones that I guess they had like the PSN purchase? Like, if they weren't available to purchase on PlayStation Network, that's it.
Wow.
There seems to be like some kind of cutoff, right? Like you can't get Motorstorm even now because it was never, I guess, ported to PlayStation Network Store or something. Like, I don't quite understand what's going on there.
I think there also could be difficulties due to licensing, because I see those games also have like licensed soundtracks as well.
They pulled all the Forza Motorsport games due to licensing, right?
I think so.
Yeah. You can't get them.
Naughty. You never own what you buy.
Bro, and I can explain, for this game, right? I did get a license for Leave You Far Behind from the Lunatic Calm guys, and that license, it does stipulate how much we're going to pay every single year that we advertise with the song, or is it just one upfront fee to have it in the game, things like that. So yeah, you got to make sure your licenses are up to date. And who knows, maybe it's not even about licenses, maybe it's just about making sure you get the latest Forza. You never know, right? Maybe it's just not worth it if the licenses are say $200,000 or even $1 million for I don't know how much it costs to license real tracks, but it's probably a boatload because they didn't do it for iRacing. I think it was iRacing that said no, we don't have the budget to license real tracks. Oh man, it can get real hairy. Another good reason to just create fantasy worlds that don't require licensed locations
and rocks that you can smash into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving this footage, bro. I'm really can't wait to get my hands on this game. I know I've pre-ordered it on Kickstarter, and I'm a huge fan of where you're going in general. We'll touch on that in a second. Actually, I'd love you to summarize kind of you and your dev's goal as a studio, your plans for the future, and all of that. But before we do, there's three more smaller questions that we have for you, John.
Yeah.
What's it like interacting with the bigger companies like PlayStation? How do you find dealing with these platform owners as a small indie studio?
Let's see. I haven't been able to get any response from Nintendo, and I've dug into it. Why? We're not represented by a publisher, right? That's risky. So at some point, once the game is released, I'm sure there'll be an open line of communication. We just have to prove ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. For Microsoft, we did send them the December demo, and basically, from what I gathered, it's just too early. They really want to see the game is done, really close to done, so that if they give us a dev kit, that probably just makes sure that there aren't a bunch of dev kits just sitting around being developed on. It's really to help us get on the Xbox store. So I'll hit them up next year when we're closer to launch and just kind of get the ball rolling with ID at Xbox again. PlayStation, I'm telling you, I was shocked. The difference was pretty nice. Just being told right away, hey, we can get you guys a dev kit. Do you want one? And I said, yeah. It was shockingly fast, and great response time, good staff. I love PlayStation, man.
That's awesome.
Can I ask you a quick question about the dev kit? Is there a specific reason it's got that different design to the actual home console?
Oh, yeah. So when they first make the hardware, they just want to make sure that it doesn't overheat. Right, okay. That's a big deal. And this is a funny thing about electronics in general. The bigger it is, the cheaper it is, actually, because you're not refining to smaller and smaller components. You can kind of just put it together pretty quickly at a good cost. And there's nothing delicate about it, right? It's beefy. So, that's why dev kits are that big.
All right, cool. Thank you.
It baffles me that they're holding out, allowing you to get on the store when you're seeing games like. Have you seen that War God, Zeus of Sun? Is that
funny you brought that up?
It's a mock-up of God of War, and it's on Xbox right now, and it's the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. I don't know if you guys in the chat, Buck Roger, will be horrified by this. I'm gonna actually get it up now. War God, Zeus child.
Oh yeah. And that's technically published through the Microsoft Store, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, here's a quality game. Here is a quality game.
Brace yourselves, chat.
With Motorcubs. Sorry, I'll get the display properly. The display is all skew-iffy. Hold on, there we go. Here's a quality game with Motorcubs that you're bringing out that's been denied, but we get this bad boy. What is going on here? For $4.99 on the store. So I'm guessing you've seen this, John. You're
yeah.
Buck
and
Rogers
we can release on the Microsoft Store, but
Buck Rogers waiting for his physical copy of this game.
Man.
That must be disheartening, bro, because in comparison, your game is just looking so heat. It's looking so good. And especially if you manage to add the mud deformation physics, that will be a big deal. And I really hope you succeed in that endeavor to push for that, because I think that will be a real awesome homage to what made, I guess, MotorStorm so incredible. Not that you're trying to make a MotorStorm clone, but I know that it's definitely inspired your work, which is Awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring back that feeling of wonder, scale, and kind of like mayhem and carnage. That's why you have like all the sparks and smoke and
Yeah.
Oh yeah, did you show anyone like what happens when a vehicle explodes?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's in this 6 minutes gameplay, but I did watch a little test where you.
Yeah. So like when the cars explode, there's actually a teddy bear that falls out and it's on track for a bit every time.
I'm trying to find it.
Little things like that. We're throwing it.
I will find it. Actually, I know on your Motorcubs channel, on your John Draisey channel, there's you're actually showing new explosions here in this gameplay clip, which I could.
It's a little zoomed in on the live stream.
Here we go.
Like it's just showing the corner.
Yeah, I've just fixed it now. It'll pop up.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It's me adjusting all the screens. Let me turn.
Oh, this is the old footage. Oh man, yeah.
There we go.
An
explosion.
But yeah, we were testing things out.
This is old, is it? Let me get the other footage back up. Hold on.
Yeah, because this is before we had like real sparks.
I've
can
got
see
the
the old
gameplay
engine.
recording here. I just need to find the bit in this gameplay where you explode. Well, it'll show in a sec. I'll keep my eyes open. Sorry, it's off screen right now. I'm gimping out. Forgive me. Here we go.
Oh yeah, dive in the hive. That's it.
Yeah. Is this the bit this bit of gameplay?
Yeah, you'll see it here when they
cool.
explode.
Well, I'm watching.
No, we're just playing the waiting game.
Oh, come on, bro.
Come on, vehicles.
This ain't Xbox.
Oh yeah, something happens here where I fall over. We'll have to fix this part, I think. Oh no, it must be the next line.
Oh, there we go. Oh shit! I just saw it there. The explosion. That was bad. That was banging. Flipping heck.
Yeah, now we just gotta beef it up.
I love it, man. I want to play that in slow motion. Hold on. Let's play that in playback speed 2.5. Here we go, guys. And the teddy bear. What happens to the teddy bear?
They just roll around right now. I want to give them like more physics where they're like squishy, or they bounce around as the vehicles like go through the jumps. I want them in there, just bouncing around with real physics. Because why not? I mean, I thought it was kind of funny that the full size bears that are racing these RC cars would put like teddy bear versions of themselves in their vehicles.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
it's like it's micro machines meets flipping Motorstone with a tiny bit of twisted metal thrown in there. I love it. So last but by no means least, penultimate question, John. Does working on a very limited budget have its own set of challenges for you?
We literally can't do everything that we want, so we had to make a real short list of how many levels, vehicles, vehicle classes, and features that we wanted to do. You know, like we can't have 6 months of programming. We can afford like 2 months, right? Like that. And from there, the good thing is like it's a really focused game, and kind of using this development cycle as a learning lesson. I don't think I want to do the next games too differently. So like one of them is like we wanted to make an RPG, right? Well, the first thing everyone wants to do is everything. But if you have a limited budget from the get-go, it's like, well, what is the most important thing to you as a game player, right? Like, I think it sets a good tone. So you're not like making 100 characters, you have 5. You want to do an entire planet, you don't have the budget. So let's make like one big city that you focus on. You bring down the scale and you focus it and make sure that you put in the time that you have instead of stretching resources. So like we are trying to be smart using like Houdini to create tools and sort of using every game as a platform for the next one, like a stepping stone. So for this game, the reason that I did this one first, it wasn't just for like going off road. It was I want to have a tool that can make any rock formation that we need for future environments. Cool, we have that solved. The next step is, well, we need a tool that can make any city that we want for RPG exploration. That's something that we have planned. And that tool combined with the environment tool, I think they'll come together and we'll be able to make a decent sized RPG with a small team where people have, you know, a lot of scope in their responsibilities, and we get it done in a reasonable time. So every game that we have planned is kind of like that. It just adds tech that frees us up and enhances like the artist ability. You know, you can iterate faster, you can build larger, you can be more creative. That's the goal with every game.
I love it. I love it. And what has community feedback meant to you and the team?
It's been big. I mean, like, the reason that we have boosts in the game is because people in the community, they were constantly asking, like, oh, it wouldn't be so cool if you had boosts in there. And so we really pushed it. Like, when I saw it like over and over, I was like, you know, this is important to them, which makes it important to me. Customers usually right.
Cockpit
so we put
view,
it in.
That's important to retro. You mentioned that before.
Yeah. And you know, once I added boost into the game, it did change how we were playing it. So we slowed the vehicles down a little bit more, adjusted the jumps so that like the AI could actually make the jumps again. And there's even more to do. Like, now I have to teach the AI where they should boost. Like, that's the next sub feature. So like, even when people think of like, hey, it's just boost, add it. Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to have the user interface working correctly when the player presses the button. And it's actually the user interface that then dictates the feature of boosting or having a boost penalty, which is two different like features technically. And then on top of that, well, does it work in two player? Is the engine aware of which controller is pressing it and which vehicle to apply it to? It's not automatic. Like, there's a lot that goes into even one feature. So that's why it's important not to have feature creep, to plan this out ahead, and like listen to the community early on. The one thing I liked about this game is that we kind of did the marketing first, right? We put the concept out there, we did the Kickstarter, and we got a lot of feedback. And from there, we could finalize the vision of the game. And now it's, I'd say, closer to what the audience imagined. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, 100%. So finally, John, it's been so freaking awesome, man. We've absolutely loved having you on. Would you be able to kind of just tell us, and completely the mic is all yours, what's your core vision as a developer, on how you want to impact the industry and how you want to impact gamers as a studio, and what are your hopes for your studio and for your future?
Sure. We have a long list of old games that we miss playing. You know, like, hey, we miss playing Warhawk, Wipeout, Final Fantasy VII, Front Mission, SOCOM. There's like a list of things that we admire what was done, and so we just want to bring like a pure gaming experience that, you know, kind of focus on like being in the living room with friends, that sort of experience. It's just not really thinking about, am I subscribed and am I going to get the latest content like month to month on the season? You know, like, that can work a little bit, but for most games, I think it is back to basics, like pretending like there is just a disc and you popped it in and you play and that's it. I like that style, and I want to make sure that we stay true to that for the next 10, 20, 30 years as we build up our library of games, and hopefully that has a good impact on other developers, and I hope we're successful, and that helps other developers like feel more confident about maybe not having season passes, maybe just, you know, refocusing their games to not necessarily be like focus group tested, but more so what they wanted to make, like what makes them excited as gamers. So I hope it helps.
I know that you're probably singing lullabies to Buck Rogers' heart right now, who's physical only. And, you know, I for one, I'm really appreciate that vision. It's needed today, where gaming is and where I want it to be. You know, I miss those old days, man. I do. And if you can bring back a taste of that for this community, I know this gaming community will definitely, those who do kind of notice and invest in your studio by buying your games and supporting you, as I will 100% appreciate what you're trying to do. And so thank you. I don't know whether you're happy and the panel are happy with this, for me just to play the 2-minute Kickstarter video for you, just to kind of summarize the game so far, and if you'd like me to. You don't have to if you don't want, if you're happy with that as it is, but I just thought it might be something just to for people to see. John, if you'd like me, would you like me to play the Kickstarter video for you guys?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Sorry. The way I'm asking these questions, man. I'm goofing out today. You'll have to forgive me. I'm proper goofing out. I don't know why. It's just nerves, I guess. Here we go, guys. So this is the Kickstarter video for Motorcubs, and it's just something that I really liked the way it was presented, and thought you guys might like a quick watch as well. So let's give it a listen. Recognize that music here, guys. Fucking Motorstorm.
Mm-hmm. We had to get that song. We had to. And Lunatic Calm, the artist in there, man, they're
that's
cool.
This show.
They're nice guys to talk.
Copyrighted.
Yeah. I'd put it in.
I love it.
Hey, I'm John Draisey. I'm the creator of Motorcubs RC. It's an off-road racing game set in Monument Valley. What happened was my friends and I got together. Put on the audio from it. We enjoyed playing old off-road racing games from the PlayStation 3 era. We wish that we could bring that back to the current gaming. Yeah, so I have a stream on. It was the difficult. There we go. Yeah, it was playing. Every rock and tree and pebble, it meant something. So you had to look out not just for the other racers, but the environment. There was a lot of challenge in that. You always feel like you're in danger, whether it's from the cactus or from a...
Sorry, was that you talking, OT?
Yeah. Is there AI in Splitscreen?
You're very muffled, brother. Can you repeat that? Your voice is really muffled.
Oh, sorry. I think there's a problem with my... Hi, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Is there AI in Splitscreen? And do the cars have individual suspension systems, like which sort of run in real time? Meaning, like when you jump, the suspension sort of becomes more springy and things like that.
Go on. Wait, am I muted?
Nope. You're fully playing.
So the suspension is arcade-like. We don't have full-on suspension. It's simplified. And that's the approach we're taking. It's just arcade for this one. We do have a sequel planned that would be like full scale and true suspension and push the physics even further. But for now, just simple arcade feel.
So, but what about the AI in Splitscreen?
So there is full AI. It's player 1 and player 2, and the rest of the field is like 22 AI vehicles.
Wow. Nice.
Take care, Dave.
And there's no rubber banding.
Folky's left the building. He's got a meeting. Take care, brother. What did you say? There's no rubber banding?
No, there's no rubber banding.
Holy shit. That's
if you... I think that was important too. The one thing I didn't like about MotorStorm was you could be in first place and then you hit a rock like 10 seconds before the finish line and you're in 5th now because they were right behind you at all times.
Yeah. Annoying.
Now, there actually is a problem, and I can see why they did rubber banding, is if you're in first place in this game, it's a little lonely because there's no one behind you sometimes because you're so good. So that's that's where we have to actually like fine tune the AI a little bit and see if we can find that balance of making sure that you are in the action for enough of a race that you're not just like crickets.
Mm-hmm. Buck Roger, before the show started, was saying how he wonders if there'll be rubber banding or not, because he hated the rubber banding in MotorStorm. So you've literally just ticked that huge box for him and for us. Like, that's great news, and I imagine finding the balance is a challenge. Guys, you can. What I'll do is I'll post the clip to your thingamabob. Jason, get your words out. My brain just isn't working today. You'll have to forgive me. Your Kickstarter trailer. I'll post it here in the chat. Guys, give that Kickstarter trailer a watch. It's only 2.5 minutes, but John goes into this great breakdown of the game and his vision for it, but pretty much summarizing in 2 minutes what we've spoken about tonight. But yeah, the link is also in the description of the trailer if you want to support and you want to get the game pre-ordered. Is there going to be a physical release, John?
Just real quick, the Kickstarter ended like a couple of months ago, so it's just a good place to keep track of updates, because we do publish updates like what's happening with the game. We do like checkpoints in development, so it is a good place to just keep track of like what's happened month to month until we release in March of 2023. As for physical copies, Sony does seem to have a process for doing that, so we'll see if the game sells enough digitally that could enable us to actually do some physical copies. I think that'd be sweet.
It would be sweet. Honestly, I know Buck will hold out for that, as will a few others. I know PlayStation community, out of all demographics, is very there's a large portion who are still holding on to collecting the physical editions of these games and playing them. And also with Motorcubs looking how it does. I mean, look at this thumbnail, guys. It's rad. Look, the pictures and the art direction of the game, and also that picture of the bear in the hot rod, kind of looking angry. I imagine it would fly off shelves if people saw the case cover. You know, maybe parents buying a PS5 for their kids. They would totally get this game as well. It looks dope, and I think the art direction would definitely suit a hardcover, a case, you know. Maybe do a limited run like Kenna did, and yeah, it would be great. John, we've kept you long enough, brother. We're really grateful for the time that we've had with
thanks
you.
for having me on, man.
I'm sorry, by the way, John, let me assure you, pal, I'm not usually this bad at hosting. I'm actually, honestly, I've just been a bag of nerves tonight. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because I've just been building tonight up in my head a little bit, but I've been stumbling and making mistakes as the host, like making errors on the software. But I just
you're giving yourself a hard time. Come.
Thank you for your patience, man, and thank you to the panel as well and everyone in the chat for your patience tonight.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate your answers tonight, John. It was awesome.
Yeah.
That was really great today, and still remember, you promised that new metal track.
I have it written down. I'll email Evan right now, just in case.
I can add drums if I have to.
I love Will. Will, how long have you been playing drums, man?
For 2 years now, I believe. 2 or 3 years.
Well, John, is there anywhere that we can find you or get in touch with you? Is there anywhere people can drop you a message?
Yeah.
If they want to find out more about this game.
I am very active on Twitter. So if you go to @John Draisey, let's do this.
I'll type it in. Draisey.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. You've done it yourself.
Yeah. Send me a message. I'll talk to you.
Awesome.
Why not?
Yeah. I love it. You have been extremely supportive of those who've reached out to you. I've noticed that firsthand on Twitter. the panel seems to have the chat seems to have loved you, and thank you, John, for very, very much for being here to talk. Really wish you and your studio every success, man, and I know I'll be rooting for you every step of the way and supporting you as much as I can as a consumer and as a gamer. So thank you. So let's do quick outros, guys. Wilhelm, where can we find you, my guy?
You can find me on Twitter under @MaximusWilhelm, and just gonna say it was an amazing show tonight. Such a fantastic show tonight, man, and thanks again to John Draisey. That was just amazing, man, and I'm very much looking forward to your game, man.
I love
it. Oh, it's gonna be a good launch. I can feel it.
I can feel it too, brother.
And I can feel it. I can feel it, as Retro says in the old baby makers. I can.
That's how you know. That's how you know it's going to be a little classic.
Yeah, my woolly sense is tingling. Retro, where can we find you, my guy?
Yeah, you'll find me about Twitter, XTSX Retro, or on the PlayStation, same name. Like to play some GT, but John, I'd just like to thank you for coming on and talking us through your game and what you have planned. I'm really excited. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Appreciate it.
Facts. And OT, where can we find you, my brother?
You can find me on Twitter at OT and some numbers. I keep forgetting those.
Just type in OT and look for a big, beautiful, bald head, and you'll see.
Yes, that's the other method. But thanks, John, for coming on. I think personally I've learned so much, and especially I think the way you are talking, I can tell management is definitely another skill you have, because you're sort of making sure you direct your time and effort within this limited amount of time you have to make sure you do the most important things. So I like that direction. So I'm wishing you and the team success.
Preach.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And honestly, you can find me as always at Wooly_gamer. As John said, you can find John Draisey at John Draisey on Twitter as well. John, I just want to say as well, thank you so much. There have been multiple penny drop moments for me tonight, thanks to you and the way that you explain things. You have a very, very good way of explaining things in layman's terms and getting me to visualize what you're saying. And with somebody with ADHD, sometimes I struggle and struggle to multitask things and listen at the same time. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate the way you've broken things down. And OT's bang on when he says that you make a phenomenal manager. I imagine those in your studio would agree. So really looking forward to your incredible game. We'll definitely play that special OT outro as well that he created for tonight's show. And honestly, just thank you to everyone in the chat. It's just been lit. I apologize for the occasional times where my mic was silent, making silly errors. I do apologize, but thank you. And Salty's Gaming, you've just got here. What's good, Salty? You're late. You're very late. No time to say hello, goodbye. And no, but on a serious note, it's great that you're here. Shout out to Brian King, Salty's Gaming, Dank Nate, Forgetful Gamer, Neil Agosto, Buck Roger, all of you in the chat. 47. You've been amazing, and Mr. David Faulkner as well. If you're catching up later on, thank you for your support despite being ill. Toolman, stay awesome, dude. Everyone, you've been awesome. So, John, thank you so much, brother, and we really hope we get you on again. We would love to have you chill with us another time, because there is so much more that we could talk about, and I would just love your takes on. But until next time, guys, we'll say use your noggin, don't be a donut, and love you all, and peace out.
What a thrill, with darkness and silence through the night. What a thrill. I'm searching and I'll melt into you. What a fear in my heart, but you're so supreme. I give my life, not for honor, but for you. In my time, there'll be no one else. Crime, it's the way I fly to you. I'm still in a dream, snake eater. Someday you go through the rain, and someday you'll feed on a tree frog. It's ordeal, the trial to survive.